If you like Khabib or want to see part 2, then be sure to smash the like button.
Come on, I'm not gonna touch you. I'm not gonna touch you. Let's get face to face. Let's get close. Look into the eyes, kid. Yeah?
Don't touch each other, please.
This I am going to truly love putting a bad beating on this little glass jaw rat.
Let's touch now. So, hey! Stop. Let's touch. Stop.
Welcome back everybody to KENAN TV. Throughout the years in MMA, we've never been a witness to a dominant force quite like Khabib. Many opponents who faced him thought they had the remedy to put an end to the unbeaten streak, but wrong they were. So join me today as I take a look back at opponents before and after fighting Khabib. Before we start, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you are new. With that being said, let's jump right into the video.
To truly love putting a bad beating on this little glass jaw rat. His brother sparked unconscious in another promotion. I know he is afraid of a smack, and if you're afraid of a smack off me, a smack will feel like a double-barrel shotgun.
Hey, we don't come here win belt, money, nothing. We come here for war. I told you guys. Ultimately talk. Now I'm gonna talk.
When Conor McGregor became the UFC lightweight champion after defeating Eddie Alvarez, Khabib had set his eyes on Conor's title. He wanted to claim it for his own and finally be crowned the UFC champion after a tedious journey to the top. Though being friendly with one another prior to all of this, tensions really started to inflame when Khabib came face to face with Conor McGregor when McGregor was going after then welterweight champion Tyron Woodley backstage at UFC 205.
Please walk. Please walk. Please walk. Please walk. Let go. You're like a woman with that phone.
Your cameras get on.
Whip out your little camera phone now.
Conor, being in a hostile mood, surely did not expect a friendly handshake from Khabib, so he started sizing him up as well. Khabib, sensing hostility, met Conor with the same body language, and the two had their first hostile encounter, which would inflame further hate for one another further down in the future.
Please, gentlemen, please.
Yeah, we will see.
As Khabib became UFC champion by defeating Ally Quinta, who was ranked number 11 at the time, who was a replacement for Tony Ferguson, the people needed to see Conor McGregor and Khabib fight to find out who really was the true champion. Conor, returning from his boxing fight with Floyd Mayweather, had not fought in MMA since UFC 205 in 2016. So as McGregor came out of his break from MMA, it seemed like he was more interested in promoting his whiskey Proper 12 over actually paying any attention towards Khabib Nurmagomedov. Instead, Conor launched the most hostile insults that anybody has ever thrown at Khabib, going after his father, nation, and fighting style. Conor really did not hold back anything. And all of this would only motivate the calm Khabib Nurmagomedov. When the day of the fight came around, and when Khabib submitted Conor in the 4th round, the emotions got the better of Khabib, and he erupted. As he lost his cool, Khabib went after Conor McGregor's teammate Dylan Dennis, who started taunting him just after he defeated Conor. So, Khabib jumped the fence and the biggest post-fight brawl in the UFC's history took place. After the fight, neither Khabib or Conor were apologetic to what happened.
He talked about my country, he talked about my father. He come to Brooklyn and he broke bus, he almost killed couple people. What about this? What about... Why people talk about I jump over the cage?
You regret any of that?
Yeah, so some of the things maybe too far, but hey, it is what it is, and it's the fight business. At the end of the day, it went the way it went, and that's it.
After the fight, both fighters would face a suspension until the summer of 2019. McGregor, who planned a return fight against Gaethje at the time, was forced to scrap it off the table as he had broken his hand. Things would soon come crashing down on Conor as his antics finally caught up with him and the people started to turn their backs on him. Being at his most hated, McGregor knew that no amount of talking would save face, so he had to just do what brought him to the dance, which was the fight. Facing Cowboy Don Cerrone at UFC 246, McGregor made sure he wouldn't trigger any negativity on his journey back to the octagon and stayed respectful towards Cerrone. McGregor completely destroyed Cerrone in the fight in just 40 seconds and successfully revived his career and is now looking to have a fight with Khabib by the end of the year.
He is running from the bout in Moscow. The public want it, the people want it, his own father wants it. It is in the nature of the Dagestani man to run. Every great Russian knows this about the Dagestani man. Every Chechen knows this about the Dagestani man. They run and they cower, and that's it. And that's what you were seeing with Khabib. He is running and he is cowering away like he did in Brooklyn when I showed up. That is an inevitable rematch. I will tell him this: you can run, but you cannot hide.
At UFC 205, Khabib had just made his much anticipated return to the octagon after a 2-year absence due to injury, facing the fast striker Michael Johnson, who just came off his career best win over future interim champion Dustin Poirier, whom he just knocked out viciously in the very first round. Going into this fight, Johnson was not sold on Khabib and figured that he was only a wrestler and that he hadn't improved much.
No, I don't think we're gonna see a new Khabib. We haven't seen him progress his game at all. You know, he's just been a wrestler to take guys down and hold them and beat on them, and he's great at that. And you know, that's what he's great at. So I hope he's became great at other places or worked on his stand-up, and I hope he tries to test it out on me Saturday. You know, I'm looking forward to that one.
Unfortunately for Johnson, he would be at the end of one of the harshest beatdowns in Khabib's pro fighting career. Khabib completely mauled him and broke his spirit by saying that he has to give up during their fight. Khabib would end up submitting the resilient John via Kimura, and with this win, Khabib officially called out Conor McGregor.
I wanna fight with your chicken because this is #1 easy fight in lightweight division.
Johnson, after losing to Khabib, would lose 4 out of his following 6 fights, to most notably the debuting Justin Gaethje via TKO. The future seems bleak for Johnson and seemingly is closing in on the final stages of his MMA career.
Didn't go my way, but I'm watching the fight right now, going back to the drawing board. I'm right back in the gym next week working on this, progress. The man deserves a title shot. He's tough, he's real tough. Strongest dude I've ever fought, but can't keep up with them feet. But we're gonna get back at it, no worries. Your boy's not going anywhere, it's a journey. We live and we learn. This fight game's a big ass roller coaster, trust me. I'm not going anywhere. I fought the best in the world, I'm gonna continue to fight the best in the world. And my opponent next is gonna have to deal with this. I promise you. The world, I promise you. I'm not going anywhere.
El Chapo Beats, the hottest music producer.
Khabib made his return to the octagon after having a botched weight cut and falling ill hours before his interim championship bout with Tony Ferguson at UFC 209 against lethal striker Edson Barboza. Barboza, who just came off another highlight reel knockout when he stopped Beneil Dariush with a counter-flying knee. He was also on a 3-fight winning streak, beating former UFC champion Anthony Pettis and former Strikeforce champion Gilbert Melendez. In the fight, Barboza had no room to utilize his striking as Khabib kept chasing him down. Barboza landed his best shot of the night as he partially connected with a spinning heel kick onto Khabib, which seemingly did not face Khabib one bit. Barboza ended up having to endure a tedious 3-round beatdown as Khabib kept throwing ground and pound punches. With this performance, Khabib would earn a one-sided unanimous decision victory and would start his journey to UFC Gold. Barboza, on the other hand, left the fight completely bruised and battered. Following his loss to Khabib, Barboza would start a string of bad performances, losing 3 out of his 4 following fights, which included a serious beatdown at the hands of Kevin Lee and a first-round knockout loss to Justin Gaethje. I believe it is safe to say that we have seen the best of Barboza, and from here on out, we will be looking at the closing chapters of his pro fighting career, as he is currently 34 years old.
How difficult of a fight was that for you, just the whole experience?
It's really bad for me. It's really bad experience, but yes, I was immediately back to training to not happen again. And I'm 100% fight like that, not happen again with me.
Going into his fight with Abel Trujillo, Khabib couldn't make weight and was apologetic to Abel backstage. As Khabib wanted to shake Abel's hand, Abel left Khabib hanging, and during the face-off as both came head-to-head, Abel started pushing Khabib backwards, and Khabib replied by shoving Abel off of him. It was safe to say that this was the first time Khabib was fighting a fighter whom he was disrespected by. Abel started strong on the fight, as he took down Khabib for a brief moment. Following that takedown, it was all Khabib time, and Abel was on the tail end of a record-setting performance in the UFC, as Khabib had taken him down for a whopping 21 times. Khabib walked away from this fight showing his next level wrestling. After his loss to Khabib, Abel would still be in the UFC up until 2017, but after losing twice in that year, he would get cut from the UFC. Rafael dos Anjos, before fighting Khabib, came off of a very impressive victory over Donald Cerrone. With this win, a funny incident would take place, as RDA thought his manager had offered him Khabib Nurmagomedov when he said the Russian fighter is next in line to fight you. This Russian fighter turned out to be not Khabib Nurmagomedov, but Rustam Khabilov.
That my manager told me, I thought was Khabib, because they say they gave you the Russian guy. I thought was Khabib. That makes sense for me. I thought it was Khabib, and then he said, and then I thought too, and then he calls Joe Silva. But man, UFC, I love fighting the organization, and they know what they're doing, so I just do my job.
In the end, things would turn out just fine, as Rafael would indeed be scheduled to face Khabib. In the fight itself, Rafael, who was arguably the most decorated grappler that Khabib would face up until that point, he, just like all the other opponents, had no success, as he also had to come victim to a one-sided show of dominance, as Rafael had no answer to Khabib's wrestling offense. Though being able to get back up after being taken down, Khabib would simply just take him down over and over again. Khabib would earn himself a very dominant unanimous decision victory, and after the fight, Rafael might just be the most successful fighter after losing to Khabib, as he went on a stellar winning spree, beating big names such as freshly former champion Benson Henderson with a flying knee, Nate Diaz by total domination, and then became the new UFC lightweight champion after defeating Showtime Anthony Pettis by decision, which earned him the Performance of the Night bonus. He then was able to successfully defend his world title once against Cowboy Cerrone, whom he TKO'd in the very first round. He ended up losing his title to Eddie Alvarez and then would move up to the welterweight division after losing to Tony Ferguson. His run at welterweight has been inconsistent, but he did manage to get a big victory over former champion Robbie Lawler. Rafael is still a capable fighter, but at the age of 35, one has to ask the question, when will he hang up the gloves? Since when you take a look at Rafael's career, it is most certainly considered a successful MMA career, having captured UFC gold.
Maybe it was a long time ago, but what was the biggest thing that surprised you in that fight with Khabib? I knew going to that fight that he would eventually take me down, but I think his ability to control me on the ground was, after that fight, in 40 days, I fought again. I didn't have much damage, almost zero, but his control, and he does have a good control, that the ability to control the opponent on the ground is really good.
Dustin Poirier, who won the UFC interim lightweight title in his fight with Max Holloway as Khabib Nurmagomedov, was suspended until the summer of 2019 for jumping the fence and starting a brawl. After Dustin Poirier defeated Max Holloway in a spectacular fight, Khabib and him were set to fight in Abu Dhabi in a custom-built arena for the pay-per-view.
7 have tried and 27 have failed. What do you have in your arsenal that makes you the one in 27 and 1?
Experience, self-belief, my mindset. I'm focused on making history, and that's all I care about. The guy's good, I can't sit up here and say that anything bad about the guy. He's good, but I'm gonna make things happen in there and bring him to places he's never been in there. So that's just it.
Both Khabib and Poirier were very respectful in the lead up to their fight, and after Khabib submitted Poirier, the same respect was shown, if not more than what it already was, as Khabib had given up his shirt to Poirier's charity organization.
It's great, because it's going to help a lot of people. We're building a water well in Uganda. With the memorabilia sold, we're going to reach the goal and build a solar power water well with a tower. I wanted to leave tonight the world champ. and just let myself down, man.
Obviously being heartbroken when he did not win the belt off of Khabib, Poirier is still eyeing another title shot and looks to prove himself as the best lightweight in the UFC. In the end, Khabib would come out of all his UFC fights nearly untouched and without an injury, which is an incredible feat in its own right, and one which truly showcases how dominant Khabib really has been in MMA. And hopefully for Khabib, he can retain this trend up until he retires from the sport. Until then, only time will tell what will truly happen. For now, I've been Kenan from KENAN KTV, signing off. Later.